chest plasters. She put on our chests, and she taught me well how to do that. She was a beautiful woman, and she always took such great care of herself. And up until the very end, she had makeup on, she had her hair done, manicures and pedicures, thanks to Mary and Mike in particular. And she learned the value of a massage between Dad and Mary. They would get those for her every week or so, so she loved it. But one of the stories when Sue said about dutiful, I don't know if you ever remember, there was an attorney here in town by the name of Young. And one time, Mrs. Young I used to work for Dr. Hedges. And I was there at the office, and she came into the office, and she saw who my name was, and she said, "Oh, you're Ed and Pat's daughter," and I said, "Yes." And she said, "The one thing I remember about your mother," she said, "one day you were all over at the country club, and you were all in the pool having a good time, and she said, one day your mother went up to the side of the pool, and she did," and she said, "all 10 of us got out of the pool." She was very impressed.
While Mom and Dad occasionally on a weekend would tend to their marriage,
the fun began.
Were left in charge. And I was no stranger to babysitting, as certainly Kathy was, but I was a sophomore in college. I was on spring break. I'm in charge. And I'll fondly refer to this as the stairway incident. All of us were involved in this. I don't think Kathy was, but the rest of us were.
You forced us into that, Mark.
Anyway.
No, he forced me into it.
It was a Saturday morning, and we all dreamed up that it would be a great idea to chase David down, de-pantsing, and throw him out in the yard. All right, so, hey, at the time, that's a great idea. All right, well, let me preface this by saying that on our house on Willow Lane, we have this kind of a curved staircase, and that was off limits to any horseplay. Could not play around on the staircase. So, of course, when you're in charge, you can bend the rule here and do this. I was in charge. So, anyway, we're all chasing Dave, and David's making a gallon effort running up the steps, and I jump and I grab him by the ankle and drop him. So I'm dropping him, dragging him down, and they're starting to open the door, and they're all waiting for him down at the bottom of the stairs so he can rip all these clothes off. And all of a sudden, he squirms away and starts running back up the steps. So, boom, I'm on him, and he almost gets to the top stairs, and I grab his ankle and I drop him. So now we're going to make it more of a ritual, and we're just going boom down the steps. All right, well, David's starting to panic, and he's reaching out trying to grab anything. And he grabs one of the spindles of the staircase. And I got to tell you, you've never seen so many stop dead in their tracks when that thing broke. I remember vividly, it was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. And the only thing I remember is instantly Matt started crying. I remember he burst out in tears because he knew his name now was tagged to something that was very, very bad. So I said, wait a minute, stop. Everybody stop. Just, and so I'm playing with the spindle. I said, wait a second here. We just kind of push it back. The fibers of the place where it broke will hold, and so I said, look, it's all right. Look, it's okay. Not a problem. Okay, so everything kind of calmed down. I said, all you have to do is not say a word. We're there. Well, I got to tell you, the 9 kids, that sounded really good. All right, so speed on for 6 months. Everything's great, all forgotten about, everything's lovely. All right, so I'm now on break, and I'm the only one home. The other kids are at school, and I'm on break, and Mother is spring cleaning. And so I just happened to be standing on the staircase at the time. I was talking to Mother, and I noticed she has a dust rag in her hand. And I'm talking to her, and she's taking the newel post and dusting it, and then she grabs the next spindle, and she's dusting that. And I'm starting to talk. And I'm getting faster, and all of a sudden you feel this wah, wah, wah. And you hear this, now what in the world is this? And I'm thinking, oh, bad, very, very bad. So as a sophomore in college, I had to explain to my mother that we had a little incident. And unfortunately, then I had to tell her, well, we were trying to beat pants Dave. And she didn't join in the enthusiasm. So anyway, I had to make sure that there was a little bit of glue applied and we put it all back together, because this was something that you were not to share with your dad. And I got to say thank you to Mother, because she covered for me. And we glued it all back together. It was fun. Who else?
Here,
I think we all would be remiss if we didn't have a great sense of gratitude for Kathy and Ann, who, through this course, which has been a roller coaster ride for years, I mean, what, 2, 3, 5 years? I mean, these were the go-to girls, and these were the girls that would, without even thinking, just jump in the car, fly a plane, go down and see Mom.
But don't forget Mary.
Well,
Sue didn't do anything, but Mary.
Everybody did something, and I know that. But I think I can say this to Kathy, because, an awesome responsibility falls upon you now, because you become the matriarch of the Frericks family. And I would think that, with your experience, that you will lead us down the path. So I hope you don't mind if you're now the ones that we have to call and cry to or something like that. But
You
nonetheless.
just have to look at the crown.
There are a lot of stories. John was up here talking. I thought he was going to tell the story about when John accidentally stole some street signs. And I'll tell you what.
Lauren and George, you don't know that story.
Well, I swear to God, I thought it was never going to. We were down in the dungeon. Mark called it barracks. It was a dungeon. Let's be honest. But I mean, with Dad and Mom, I've never heard conversation like that. I swear to God, I thought we lost a brother. I thought that we were never going to see him again. And I mean, that was a very terrifying time. In fact, I think that's when John devised the plan that, John was pretty good with the electronics. And
Yeah.
remember, he wanted to put a little tripwire on the first
It was
step.
a
that
doorbell.
turned all the lights.
Doorbell.
So we knew somebody was coming down the stairs.
All this shut up instantly. John was the brains, that's for sure.
And the voice of the line.
Also, I'd like to thank my older brothers in wood shop. Mom could wield a wooden paddle. And these guys were so nice enough to do a shot class with all the holes in it that whistled around, and there were plenty of times that Mom would come down, that damn paddle in her hand, and she would be smacking it, and you just had to thank these.
The worst time is when she made you go get the paddle. That's the punishment. Of course, we never could find it. We're hiding it back there behind the boxes.
It's funny, if anybody needed a nap or a Kleenex, I'm sure Mom would be pulling one out right now. I don't know how that tradition's going to carry on. But, just a hodgepodge of things. I remember that I did a few illegal things that I embarrassed the family name. And I'll never forget, Mom pulled me aside because she said how I embarrassed the name. And Dad didn't even talk to me because, here he and Mom have built up the Frericks name here in Circleville, Ohio, and with all due respect, the Frericks name is pretty important. And I brought shame on it that one time. And Mom was so disappointed. And that was just the one thing that I couldn't have hurt somebody more than by doing something like that.
Bowling Green is still a good school.
It's not Notre Dame, Jim, but it's fine. It's Mac school.
Yeah, I think it's good as the heights on there, not the Notre Dame stuff on it. But anyways, Mom certainly was obviously a loving woman. Dad, the walls at on Lincoln Road, they're pretty thin. I just want to remind you.
They didn't have to go to Columbus.
You're exactly right. But anyways, you know what? My mind's just racing with all kinds of other things. But one of the things that also scared Mom to death was I was in a car accident. And the car was banged up pretty bad. And I remember she went to the impound lot to see this car. I mean, that thing was flat. I mean, there was no roof to it. And she came home and she was all upset and she just asked me right in my face, were you wearing a seatbelt? And I said, yeah. And I was lying through my teeth. Because if I told her I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, she probably would have killed me. But anyways, you know, we're going to miss Mom, obviously. And from the younger end, you know what? She was a wonderful woman. She taught us to pray, love one another, and to respect one another. So that's my thoughts, and we're all going to miss her.
Very good, John.
I've got two stories. The first one I'm going to tell you is because Bill Bennett told it to me. I asked if he could stay later, and he said he couldn't, but I asked if I could share this story, and he said yes, of course. But he said when he was a young man and helping to deliver groceries from his parents' groceries to the Frericks house, they were always scared. Because he and Bert would be coming in, and they'd have the long list and things like that, and they had several boxes to go. Well, they would finally get out there, and they would make their delivery, and they'd pull up into the driveway, and they'd have 7 or 8 boxes of cardboard and stuff. But as soon as they got there, all the boys rushed out of the house and would start taking things out of the boxes before they could get them into the house. And he said that Pat was always very forgiving, and she never questioned what they delivered. But he said by the time they got in the house, there wasn't much left. Especially M&M's. But Pat was a very loving and forgiving woman, and I think we all know that to our hearts. Except there was one time she never forgave me, and that's when I let an ace without having to pay.
Jump right up.
I just wanted to say from a grandchild that the memories that Grandma has given us and has instilled family, sorry, I'm not good at that. But she and Grandpa made this family, and I just wanted to say thank you. Because it really means a lot.
All right, Emily.
You guys got the dirt on everybody. I've seen it all from perspective. No, actually, the siblings will enjoy this. This is the Frericks isms that later we can share for those of us who appreciate that. Actually, for those of you who are not Frericks, gosh, this was what, maybe 15 plus years ago. We used to have Christmas out at Deer Creek, and as someone said here, you know, what other family is so large that you had to go rent out a lodge just to have Christmas? So one time we came up with our favorite isms of Mother and Dad. It was just little sayings and things that they had said that were a lot of fun and meant a lot to us kids. So that was a lot of fun, and I, for whatever reason, had the foresight all those years ago to keep them, and so I have them, and so we're going to go over that a little bit later tonight. So there's probably 3 things I did want to say about Mother, and one of them, you know, prompted me was the story about thanks. And so if you haven't heard it, or you realize it, Mother was huge about saying thank you. And one of the things that I remembered most distinctly about that little lesson in my life was that there was a woman who used to babysit kids at the old day care center, Mrs. Gilmore, who lived on South Court Street, just a couple houses down from the junior high school. And that house kind of looked like a scary castle to me. And so it was one of the blessings that we had in our life was that, you know, Mother was a stay-at-home mom. And so was always there when we came home from school. And of course, being the baby of the family, you know, it was Mom and I a lot of the time. But occasionally when she had to get her hair done or she played bridge or some other reason, and she would take me to Mrs. Gilmore's. And that probably didn't happen but 4 or 5 times in my life. But let me just tell you, I hated going to Mrs. Gilmore's. It was a big, scary house. I didn't know these people. So even though it was a large family, just being introduced to a different situation was always very, you know, scary to me. And I remember one time going with Jim, and, you know, Jim just, you know, he has no strangers. You know, he came right in there and, you know, was working the room. But I was, you know, very young, and I was scared about that. But anyways, one of the times that Mother had done that, Mrs. Gilmore had a huge bowl of candy in the kitchen, right by the door when you left. And of course, at the end of the day, you got to have to take a piece of candy and go on your way. Well, it was one of those times where I was just so upset for being there, and I didn't want to be there, and I always hated that.
But the time came, finally, recognizing Mother's, voice and her face, and, I finally get to go home from this, this prison that I've been in. And Mrs. Gilmore said, Matt, you can have a piece of candy. Well, sure enough, you can bet. I took that piece of candy, and Mother said, well, Matt, what do you say to Mrs. Gilmore? And let me just tell you.
See, it wasn't the issue.
I think the word over my dead body came out. But I would not say thank you to her. And sure enough, Mother said, you put that back. Well, of course, I cried. But you would have got from a kid's perspective, yeah, just being a spoiled kid. But to me, that was my right. Because that candy for doing that. So, it's always funny to me about but Mother was very serious about that. You had to say thank you. The other thing was laughter. Mother just had a wonderful sense of humor. And, I'm trying to think of some specific things, but kind of what Jim said, kind of generalities. But Grant and I are in Oxford, and we had a rental home, and it's an old 1920s bungalow house. But anyways, when we lived there, we did this summer night, and we'd have the windows open, and you could hear the crickets or, the locusts, making their noises. It's a very summer night sound. And that really took me back to being on Willow Lane. And in the summer, it'd be hot, and the windows would be open, and, we were out of school, and I could just remember those noises and hearing those types of things. And some specific memories as far as being with Mother was at 11 o'clock during the summer, the Twilight Zone came on. Which, of course, for her, this was all repeats. But for us kids, that was new stuff. So that was so interesting, and I just remember how special that was, that, Mother was just as interested and excited to see that and share that with us, and we really enjoyed that. But speaking of Mother, and on a Saturday night in the summer, it was the Carol Burnett show. Mm-hmm. And, hearing Mother laugh and those skits, and even when it was on repeats, and, of course, David would be pressed into having to make popcorn, and, we had to split a Coke. You couldn't have a whole Coke, the whole bottle. So Mother's laughter and sense of humor was just wonderful, and so the Carol Burnett show always makes me think of Mother in that sense. But the final little story I have that I think Mother really enjoyed telling, but this was truly kind of the, out of the mouth of babes. But I was a little kid, and of course being the 10th of all the children, that I was asked all the time, I wouldn't even know who these people were, and they'd come up to me and they would say, are you a Frericks? And I must have heard that dozens and dozens of times, are you a Frericks? So obviously the family resemblance was just a little bit strong. And I would say, yes, I'm a Frericks, or yes, I'm a Frericks. And finally, I remember I must have been like at the Pickaway County Fair, or something to that effect. And finally, after hearing this so many times, someone came up to me and said, are you a Frericks? And that time I said, no, but I hear they're really great people. So I'd love to hear that
I've got two things to say. First of all, I think all 10 kids would be completely, or all 9 kids, Matt, this is directed to you, would be completely remiss if we did not, well, obviously we have formally many times thanked you for your very unselfish gift of donating your kidney to Mom, because we really got another, 10 years out of Mom easily. And the quality of her life, was that much greater. And, these grandchildren here today, my sons, got to know Mom a lot better because of Matt. And I just want to thank you, Matt. And I thought maybe we'd see the scar, but you didn't, so I give you credit.
If we were only drinking, we would have been doing it by now.
I know, I'm really disappointed there isn't anything.
And Matt, did you hear they can now do that through your belly?
I think about 2 weeks after my
Matt, the scar's only like this now.
The second thing I want to say, and Dad, I'm sure you probably never heard this story, but, for anyone who really, or my girlfriends back there, or anyone, or Lisa Frericks, all you people all the women who really like to shop. There isn't a Frericks daughter that likes to shop. We hate it. We go, it's a burden, I don't know why, we've just never enjoyed it because, for us girls, shopping, in fact, I don't really ever remember Kathy being involved, but it was always a trip to Lazarus. Well, but I remember it seemed like Sue was the worst person in the world to try and find clothes to fit her and this sort of thing. So Mom would always take Sue off, and Mary and I got to run off and do whatever we wanted to do throughout the stores and everything at Lazarus. And I won't go into everything we used to do, Mary, but in any event. But shopping was a huge, huge thing, and it would either be for some big occasion, whether it was Christmas or Easter or something, and you know, we only got the one, or we were lucky if we got 2 dresses or something, but Mom was generally always exhausted after spending the day at Lazarus with Sue. But,
We're all exhausted spending the day with Sue. What are you talking about?
Can I imitate it?
You know, this was my special shopping spree with my mother. Dad would be in a family room in his high chair, or in his chair. Mom would sit down, and this was after, like, all-day shopping.
Ed, I'd rather have a beating than take that.
Good time.
That's probably a good segue about I'd rather have a good beating, because it always seemed to be a great occasion that when Mom and the 3 girls drove back from Lazarus, which for many, many, many years of my life, I thought Columbus was Lazarus. We were going to Lazarus. Well, I always thought Lazarus was Columbus. Well, Lazarus was the store. But anyway, every single time we would go on a trip, and it didn't always have to be a shopping trip or whatever, Mom would pull out the rosary beads, and we'd have to say a rosary. Well, like, Sue was maybe the one in front, and Mary and I were in back, and I happened to be probably right in the rear view shot of Mom in the rear view mirror, and I just kind of kept blinking down, thinking, she's going to ask me to say the rosary. And I thought, I don't remember the mystery. And then sure enough, she picked Mary. So Mary, thank you for remembering the rosary. And also, before the wake and the calling hours, my brother John, where are you, we had a private rosary said, and John, I was extraordinarily impressed with your ability to do that, so I'd like to thank you.
The trip to Lazarus that Amber got to say was, when mother
I probably didn't forget to say it, Mary.
But when we would shop, it was always, don't show your father anything.
Right.
Keep your things straight to your room.
Right, hide it.
With a bill. One story I have, and Betty, you will appreciate this because you will remember this. I was a good kid. I really got one. I only never got in trouble, but maybe one time that I can really remember.
One time?
And in our Anderson is in our family, when you got grounded, grounding meant no phone calls, no friends over, no going to friends' house, doing the dishes by hand. It was severe. And
For 3 weeks, too.
With our friends, it was always, grounding was like, well, maybe you couldn't go out on Friday night. You were grounded maybe for a month. Well, when I was a sophomore in high school, it was a sweetheart dance for all those people that live around Circleville, and that was a dance in February. Well, my boyfriend and I, and my best friend Sue Melbourne and her boyfriend, we were going to go to Columbus to go shopping. Betty, do you remember the story?
She's told it many times.
We left for Columbus early in the morning. I went, got my hair cut, and I wasn't driving at the time, but we stopped at Great Southern Shopping Center, and I got to drive all through the parking lot, scratched my car. Well, we had such a good time that day that when we pulled into Circleville, it was like 7:30, and it was getting dark, and I thought, oh, I should have been home before now. And I realized that Bramer's was closed. I had not picked up my car for the boutonniere. So when we drove up, the 4 little boys were playing basketball. Dave, do you remember this?
Oh, very vividly. It was the one time I can enjoy Saturday night without going to bed. The best show of the night. Front row center, I wouldn't miss a miss.
We drove up, and all the little boys came up going, you are in big. And I got panicked then because I thought it was getting dark. I hadn't been home since early in the morning. Well, Mother, I think it was the wrestling tournament, and Mother wasn't there. And Mother had been very sick. She'd had the flu or something. Well, she was standing at the front door, and when Mother had to meet you at the front door, that was never a good thing. And she said, Mary Ellen, and whenever she called me Mary Ellen, that wasn't a good sign. She said, get inside. So my boyfriend kept walking in with me, I'm thinking, boyfriend, they took off. So Bill kept walking with me, and I kept thinking, Bill, you don't want this. He walked in, and Mother just said, she said, I have been worried to death about you. She said, all it would have taken was a dime. And at that time, a payphone was 10 cents. She said, all it would have taken was a dime to call me to tell me where you were. She said, I have been worried sick that you're letting it ditch somewhere. And she said, she said, this is going to hurt me more than it does you, but you cannot go to the dance tonight. Well, I was, had my boots on. I was ready to go. And, she said no. So I could not go to the dance. And I remember, Betty, that you said at Bridge, you could not believe Mother, and I was traveling for like 6 weeks. But that night, I didn't get to go to the dance, so I, stayed home. But someone called and needed a babysitter. And she's like, you get down the street there and you babysit those kids. Which was okay, because then my friends came over. And here's why, when you got in trouble, and that was really the only time I really think I ever really got in trouble with Mother.
But that's the only time I ever crossed her. Because I said, I think that was just unforgivable.
Oh, that's right. See, I remember that. You did.
But we were still good friends.
Years later.
But as a parent now, I can appreciate where she was coming from. Back then, I did.
Betty, what was Mom's response when you said that was unforgivable?
She said, everybody has their own ideas of what to do, or something like that. And but it was, I was so shocked, because obviously I was a pretty lousy mother. And she taught me a lot of good things, but that one shocked me. I gather that I was too wishy-washy. I would not have made my child stay home from the dance. That's because all my life I wanted to be a part of everything, That's why it bothered me. But she was still a friend of mine. She never told me.
Well, Betty, you have a story?
Yeah. Please, Tom's ready to talk.
Well, now, as you all know, I had the great fortune of my life to get to go to Notre Dame. And, of course, there's Dad and Art, Notre Dame grads, everything. Of course, Dad was a lot big influence about Notre Dame, especially on the academic side. You got to study, and got to study. Well, Mark was listening, but, as a little kid, we, very little. It was always all about Notre Dame. So as I've talked to a lot of people about, being cradle-raised Notre Dame versus, kids that get recruited and do whatever. But anyway, Dad was a big influence in our lives about that. But I can remember all the way back, living on Dunkel Road. I wasn't even in kindergarten yet. And we were sitting around. Mom was doing ironing in the family room there. And there was this movie, New Rock and the All-American. Well, I was just a little kid. Meant nothing to me. Well, at the end of that movie, they start singing the Notre Dame Victory March. And I remember looking at her, and she was in full swing. I mean, she was ironing just, what do I know about this? But anyway, by the end of, when our ironing was done, of course, the big show was going to be, she was going to teach me that song. And I was going to perform it at dinner that night, Dad. But I remember trying, and then she was going back and forth trying to get me to learn that song, and at dinner, and I'm trying to choke this thing out from memory. But needless to say, the influence of Notre Dame for me, as I say, Dad was very big about the Notre Dame, but I can remember going that far back where she was an influence on my life as far as the Notre Dame. And as I say, the opportunities I had were fabulous, but there was no getting away from Notre Dame. But also for Mom, for me, was the fact that, as you all know, she had a bad back. And it was very important for me to have my parents at my athletic events. And I remember, especially into the wrestling season, how she would sit there for hour after hour sitting on those wood bleachers. And I could just see the pain in her eyes. But, as I say, it was always a thrill for me to have Mom at those athletic events. And that, as I say, she's free of the pain today, but needless to say, I've always appreciated her going to all those events. So, needless to say, Mom is free of the pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've been here well over an hour. Is there anybody else that...
I want to do a reading from a friend of mine who wrote me an email in summing up what he thought of my mom. So I want to read this to you real quick.